Hi, so I'm going to read today The Island by Armin Greder. Now, we've come across Armin Greder once before. You recall The Great Bear, and Armin Greder collaborated with Libby Gleason on this particular one. And The Great Bear was about, if you like, man's inhumanity to a bear. So it was quite a dark kind of story, with some hope that bear escaped. Here's another story by Armin Greder, and it also is quite a dark story. So it's a story that I would only use probably in upper primary and lower secondary. You can see how dark this story is going to be from the very first image in it, an ocean that is really dark and foreboding. So that kind of foreshadows what's about to come. One morning, the people of the island found a man on the beach, where fate and ocean currents had washed his raft ashore. When he saw them coming, he stood up. He wasn't like them. And one of the things about this book is that the image of the protagonist, the man who's arrived on the island, he's naked. And we might ask, well, why would an illustrator, create a character who is naked? What is the point behind that? Because nothing that writers and artists do is done by mistake. The people stared at him. They were puzzled. Why had he come here? What did he want? What should they do? One of them suggested it would be best to put the man straight back on his raft and send him away without delay. I'm sure he wouldn't like it here, so far away from his own kind. But the fisherman knew the sea. If we send him back, it'll be the death of him, and I don't want that on my conscience, he said. We have to take him in. But look at the image of the islanders. We only hear the voice of the fisherman, we don't actually see the fisherman. But the images there really say something about the people. And just to accentuate the point that the fisherman has made, we get that second image of the sea, the great expanse of the sea, and the rolling darkness of those waves, almost indistinguishable from the dark clouds above. And then we have, so they took him in. But look at how they took him in. I think this is a wonderful example of multimodal irony. So we took him in. Normally, that expression could be said with great compassion. So we took him in. But actually, they didn't take him in with great compassion. They took him in with reluctance and anger and hesitation in their voices. They took him to the uninhabited part of the island, to a goat pen that had been empty for a long time. They made him understand that he was to stay there and showed him where he could sleep on some straw. And then they locked the gate and went back to their business. And life on the island returned to how it had always been. So we've got these various kind of domestic things going on here, showing how life had always been. But look at this image below of the children imitating what they saw their elders doing. But just note the child at the front there, not exactly imitating what the man did. We have a suggestion there that maybe this particular child empathized with the man. Perhaps it's the fisherman's boy. Then one morning, the man appeared in town, and look at how the image exemplifies the reaction of people. There's an element of intertextuality here, because this image is very similar to Edvard Munch's The Scream, a painting from the Expressionist era that kind of exemplified Munch's anxiety. This caused a commotion. The people grabbed him roughly and screamed at him. He tried to make them understand that he was hungry, that he hadn't eaten for days, and could they not give him something to eat? He's right, said the fisherman. We can't ignore him now that he is amongst us. We must help him. This frightened the people. But we can't just feed anyone who comes our way, argued the grocer. We don't have enough for everyone. We would all starve to death. The fisherman suggested that someone should give him a job so that he could earn his keep. And, he added quietly, he would probably work for less pay than one of us. The innkeeper could surely use some help in the kitchen. And then, of course, what we find is that each suggestion of a job is met with some kind of resistance, some kind of excuse. So, the innkeeper says, if he was in my kitchen, nobody would want to eat at my inn, muttered the innkeeper. Hire him yourself. But there was only room for one on the fisherman's boat. The carpenter remembered the man's poorly crafted raft. He evidently had no idea how to use a hammer or saw. The carter said simply, look at him, I need someone who can carry heavy loads. And the priest was very sorry, but the stranger's voice would clash with the rest of the choir. In that case, we will have to look after him together, said the fisherman. We took him in. We can't turn our backs. Even though he's not one of us, he's still our responsibility. In the end, the innkeeper agreed to let the man have the scraps he would otherwise toss to the pigs, and they took him back to the goat pen. They strengthened the goat pen and took turns to guard him, so that in future he would not disturb them. But despite the man's presence, it continued to trouble the people. They hadn't asked for him, but he was here. Their act of kindness had not been the end, merely a beginning. They had taken him into their island, and now he was part of their lives. But he haunted their days and often their dreams. Men frowned and muttered under their breaths. Women stayed in their kitchens, and mothers warned their children not to go near the goat pen. The school teacher lectured about savages and their strange ways. He eats with his hands, said the innkeeper, and he eats bones. He will come and eat you if you don't finish your soup, said a mother, warning her child. Oh, the children are scared of him, lamented the school teacher that night at the inn. I'm sure he would murder us all if he could, said the policeman. Foreigners spread fear in town, said the newspaper in big black letters. Do we hear some resonances here with real life? The people grew restless. Fear spread throughout the island. People began to talk. We have to do something before it's too late. We have enough troubles as it is. He's not one of us. He's not our problem. He's a stranger. He doesn't belong. He has to go. And so they went to the goat pen. Seized the man. Marched him to his raft and pushed him out to sea. And then they set fire to the fisherman's boat because he had made them help the man. But some people agreed with the fisherman, but the others were louder. They never again wanted to eat fish from the sea that had brought them the stranger. They built a great wall around the island with watchtowers from which they could search the sea for signs of rafts and shoot down passing seagulls and cormorants so that no one would ever find their island again. And we're left with the image of the burning fisherman's boat again on that forbidding sea. An example of how a children's picture book mirrors real life. And you will read so many examples in this text of situations around the world where people are not accepting of others.